Assistant Professor of Recreation, Tourism, and Sports Management, Tricia Day. You are in the Brown Room of the Sue Craven Stivers Alumni House for an episode of Lindsey Wilson Conversations. And the way this works is you get to enjoy a beverage of your choice while discussing a topic of your choice. The beverage you have chosen is coffee, and the topic you have chosen is the children's book, Where the Wild Things Are. Where the Wild Things Are is a 1963 children's book by American writer Maurice Sendak. The book is a 9-sentence story about a boy named Max who is sent to his room without supper by his mother as punishment for misbehaving, and he winds up visiting the land of the wild things where he becomes king before returning home to his room. A Spike Jonze directed film adaptation of the book will debut on October 16th in the United States. You have students read the book in your class, Introduction to Recreation and Leisure. Why?
Well, one of the topics that we talk about in class is what is play. And so we use this book as a way to talk about what's the value of play for Max and what's the value of play for kids. And why is it important that kids have a way to express themselves through their play.
What does the book say about play?
Well, I think that it speaks to just the way that Max interacts with his parents. In the beginning scenes, he gets in trouble with his mom. His mom's cooking dinner and he's playing. And I think what he's really saying is he wants some interaction, he wants some attention. And instead of having a way to vocalize that and saying, Mom, could you play with me? He sasses off to her and as his character. And I think that launches him into his punishment, which is this thing that he creates where he's in control and he gets to decide things and that he's the boss of things and gets to make choices for himself.
Is the appeal of the land of the wild things to Max is that he's in control?
Well, I think so. It's a place where he gets to be in charge. He gets to be in control. He gets what he wants, which is for everyone to do what he wants them to do. And so for him, I think it is an opportunity to exercise some control.
At the end of the book, Max returns to his room. Why does he return to his room even though he's in charge of things and the land of the wild things?
Well, I think initially he's lonely. He misses his mom. He misses home. And I think that he finds that, control wasn't necessarily what he thought it was going to be, that people doing exactly what he told them to do wasn't really what he wanted. So I think it speaks to how kids need boundaries and want boundaries, but also need some sense of control within those boundaries.
Where the Wild Things was published almost a half century ago. It's considered a children's classic, and yet it still resonates today as a fresh book. Why do you think it's still so popular today with children?
Well, I think it's a classic work of literature that's very timeless. The truths that it speaks to, the characteristics of Max are characteristics of kids regardless of the time period. And so I think that it will continue to be a classic for generations in the future just because it's a kid, it's everyday life. And if this wasn't a children's story, this would just be a day in the life of Max. And I think that is why it's so popular, and that's why there's so much truth to be told in the 9 sentences of the book.
When the students in your Introduction to Recreation and Leisure class read Where the Wild Things Are, how do they react to it?
Well, I think initially when we talk about the fact that we're going to read the book, I think most of them have read it as kids, and so they remember it. We look at it in a little different way, but I think the thoughts and the feelings that it brings up for them are usually very positive. And one of the things that we talk about in class is the difference between the way that we look at play and the way we value play and look at it in American culture and look at it through a historical lens, through some of the other influences of the church particularly, and how that wasn't always looked at as a positive thing, but how, present generations are looking at it as a positive thing, but also looking at it as a way for kids to be able to express themselves and to look for what are kids really saying beyond what it is that is actually happening. And so using it as a tool to look a little deeper into our culture and looking at it as a way to examine our culture and to understand what are we valuing and what are we sort of giving to future generations through the way that we are interpreting the value of play and the things that kids are doing while they're playing.
Assistant Professor of Recreation, Tourism, and Sports Management, Tricia Day, thank you for joining us for Lindsey Wilson Conversations.